Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be across this beautiful blue-green globe of ours. Welcome to Real News Live. It is a Toxically Masculine Tuesday, and I am your host, Mike Bara, number one fan of the world champion Seattle Seahawks. Welcome to the show. It's great to be here. I'm joined today by fans of other teams that are not as good as the Seattle Seahawks, starting with the man to my immediate right, Dr. Brooks Agnew, somewhere in the Carolinas. Brooks, how you doing? What are you drinking? And how's life been these last 2 weeks while I've been?
Well, it's been lonely, Mike. It's been very lonely. But things are going well here in North Carolina.
Prison lonely, I hope.
Okay. No, but we missed Toxically Masculine Tuesday. I got a bunch of mail. Hey, where are you guys? So, I didn't bark.
I wasn't even sure we were going to make it tonight. It looks like YouTube might be down. I don't know if there's a link to post, but still.
We'll just do the best we can and hope that people can find us. And it'll still
I'm drinking water.
It'll still be there and be completely demonetized anyway for Steve Doran's language. So that's the way it goes. It's been it's been a couple of weeks. I was in the ER. A couple weeks ago with some dizziness, some stuff going on with my inner ear. I've been to a specialist. I'm getting better, and I'm going to keep working on that. So we'll see what happens with that. But Brooks, it's great to have you back. Sitting immediately below him in the Hollywood Square situation we have now is Steve Doran, the trail boss, somewhere in nowhere, Fuckville, Arkansas. Steve, how's it going, and how are those pooches? They sound very healthy right now.
Well, I had the one that died.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So I would highly recommend people not getting any of the vaccines that they give dogs. He got a vaccine. He's only 2 years old, and he had a stroke and died.
Wow.
So none of my dogs are getting any vaccines anymore ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you, and I'm really sorry about that. I mean, we'll start with dogs tonight. So, they're wonderful creatures and great friends. The man to my in the Hollywood Square immediately below me, of course, is from Nashville now, formerly from Minnesota Vikings fan. Thank you for the quarterback, the Super Bowl winning quarterback there, Blake. I appreciate that as a Seahawks fan. And the current owner of the finest strip club in Nashville, Tennessee, the Lickety Split. Blake, how you doing? What are you drinking? And when are the girls coming in for the night shift?
Well, it's a lot of stuff there. Yeah, doing well. It's great to be here. It's a little early. It's only 8 o'clock. We don't usually open the club to the public till about 10. Maybe the girls come in around 9:30 and get ready. You know how it is. But what else do I got to say? Yes, congratulations to Sam. I like the guy. Won nothing. No hard feelings. Didn't want to sign him to a huge contract and didn't want to give him the franchise tag. Had to develop McCarthy and see where we went. But I'm glad it worked out. Happy for Sam. He's a good guy. So congrats on that big win.
Yeah, it was great. I know there's people that don't like sports in this conversation, but I do. I love the NFL. And yes, there's many games that are rigged. This game was not rigged. They just let the Seahawks walk all over the New England Patriots. And no, there's no revenge here. That previous game was like 12 years ago and completely different teams and coaching staff. So they were just the next people we had to beat. It's weird. It's like, it's the biggest sporting event in the world, and it's really cool when your team wins it. It just really is. And every championship feels different. And I didn't see this coming until about
Can I go take a nap till you're through with this bullshit?
about week 15. I said to my brother, "I think we can win the Super Bowl," and we did, and it was like fucking awesome. So, so you can't be masculine if you don't like football, Steve. It's all there is to it. So,
You're gay if you like the football of today. You're bisexual.
Well, yeah, it's not as good as the football of before, but it's football.
There aren't enough broken bones and torn ligaments and concussions for you, Steve.
And
Yeah.
leather helmets.
Oh, no, all
I love the game, but it's a guilty pleasure.
all the anti-American rhetoric that those assholes pull,
That's true.
all of the homosexual halftime shows, all that stuff. You're putting money into the pocket of the pedophiles. You're putting money into the pocket of the people who are destroying this country. So,
Well,
no,
Roger Goodell needs to go. I agree with that 100%, but I can't help myself. I still love the game. YouTube is apparently back. It's good to see you guys back. So thank you for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, super chat, and Rumble Rant over on the Rumble side. We appreciate that too. So let's get to the news. Steve, you just talked about your dogs, and something happened yesterday which supposedly for some reason caused a stir. Now, I don't know why it caused a stir, but apparently it's a big deal. Let me see if I've got it right. Yeah, let me get the right one there. News came out that Morocco is murdering hundreds of thousands of dogs to clear them out of the streets because they're hosting another sporting event, the World Cup. And Morocco is a Muslim country, and a U.S. representative whose name I forget, I should know it in here, Piers Morgan. Where is Piers? Hang on. Sorry, I'm not totally prepared. Piers Morgan attacked a U.S. House representative. What did he say? Shit. Damn it. Oh, yeah. Congressman Randy Fine, who posted this. If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. This was also put forward where New York City, a mainstream Muslim group, said that Islam is finally coming to New York City, is coming to Islam, and we're going to get rid of the dogs. And then Piers Morgan called the guy a disgusting prick. I'm going to start with you there, Steve Doran. For me, and I'm going to say this bluntly, and I don't give a shit who likes it or doesn't like it or doesn't want to have me on their TV show because I'm going to say it. If I have to choose between dogs and Muslims, I'll take dogs every single time. Because last time I checked, no dog ever flew an airplane into a building or executed someone for not being a Muslim. Islam is a disgusting, low life, not religion. It's a political ideology. I don't want it in America. I don't care what fucking name you call me. We need to get it out of our country permanently and forever, just like they did this week, by the way, in Japan. Steve, how do you feel about the choice between your Muslim friends and your dogs?
I don't think I have any Muslim friends, to be honest with you. But
I hope not.
It's been a long-standing problem in Muslim countries. They not only destroy the dogs, they torture them prior to destruction. And if you remember, the Biden administration left all of our United States Army canines in cages, and the Muslims let them die of thirst.
Yep.
Never let them out of the cages, never fed them, never gave them any water. And our government left those dogs there. So, it's as criminal as it comes because, dogs are completely innocent. You can mistreat them and they'll still, try to treat you right. And so it's a total misjustice, and the Muslims can all go to hell. The mayor of New York can go to hell. In fact, Mayor, if you're watching this, kiss all of my ass. And if I ever see you, I will spit in your face for the fact that you're trying to outlaw dogs in the city of New York. And I hope that people rebel against you and just rip you out of office and throw you off the top of a building.
Yeah, like they do
Is
to
that
gay
plain
in
enough?
Muslim countries. Wow, we're gonna get
And
this
he
doesn't
is
get
gay. And on top of it, he is. So he's a gay Muslim, you know, and he's hiding behind being married. So
yeah,
That's
he
as,
needs to be exposed
redundant.
and then let the Muslim throw him.
as does Corey
Right.
Booker.
That's redundant.
Let's get a little perspective on this. We're having some issues. Let's get a little perspective on this from Glenn Beck.
That's not going to happen. Oh, by the way, let's say hello to our good friend, Governor Gavin Newsom. He called on Representative Randy Fine of Florida to resign over comments the Republican made about Muslims. What did he say? If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. Oh, no, he's got to resign right away. You know what? Not all Muslims are Islamists, but I will pick the dogs over the Islamists every day and twice on Sunday. I know what my dog does. I can't talk to you about what Islamicists do because that would be racist. I don't know if you heard what this activist in New York said, but dogs are not Islam. They're not part of Islam, and they shouldn't be in the street. You should not have them in New York City. You should not be able to have a dog in New York City because it's not Islam. I don't care. And you know what? I'd be happy to announce that every dog is a good Christian, that every dog is going to heaven because they've accepted Jesus Christ in their hearts. I'm not going to judge my dog. My dog is a good Christian. What a bunch of bullcrap. They're not Islam. I don't care if they're Islam. Welcome to the West. This is Western Judeo-Christian Western values. America, you're killing yourself because you refuse to say anything. You're killing yourself because you refuse to stand up for what you know is right. To hell with you. You don't like my dog, that's your right. You say you want to get rid of them because it's not Islamist. You know what? Neither is the United States of America, nor will it ever be. Over my dead body.
Okay, so we found out what Glenn thinks about that. Blake, do you agree with what he said, or take some issues with it, or what's your stance on this? Because as far as I'm concerned, Mamande can go fuck them all the way off, and maybe we should send the troops in to just take New York back. I don't know.
Yeah, that is bizarre thing to say.
By the way, Blake
right.
Wally, former star of Escape from New York.
Right. Yes, that was a good one. An Escape from LA. But yeah, I in general, I don't understand how anybody don't like dogs. I don't know how you have a whole culture that doesn't like dogs. So I don't understand that. It's probably one of the rare times I might actually agree with Randy Fine. So I to some extent, I don't know exactly how far I want to take that. He's, clearly very divided on that issue, but I would kind of agree here with Deb in chat saying she would, choose dogs over most people. I'm kind of in that camp. So I'm fascinated with why they don't accept that as part of their culture. But I like to hear them, give some sort of explanation for that. It's interesting to see the cultural differences, but it's pretty horrific what they're doing there in Morocco. And I hope that puts everything under the microscope there in New York, because that definitely deserves more explanation.
I concur with you.
Did you say they were having the World Cup there?
They're actually having it in the U.S. I think it's another World Cup, like some other.
Every country needs to not go.
Yeah, if I was the president, I would say if one more dog is harmed in Morocco, then the United States is not coming to the World Cup, and we're withdrawing all our financial support. Brooks, this illustrates to me a larger cultural thing, which is we need to start facing the fact about what Islam is and the fact that it doesn't belong in the West and it doesn't belong in America, and we should bulldoze every fucking mosque in this country and send all these bastards back to whatever third world shithole they came on. But that's just my opinion. What do you think?
I have 2 words. Woof, woof. Enough said.
Nice.
Dogs of the world unite.
Okay, that's it. That we're done. Talks of the world unite. Okay, sounds good.
And by the way, where are all these fat, ugly liberal women, who protest ICE over illegal aliens? Why aren't they? They all have dogs. Why aren't they protesting that? Where's Greta? Where's her flotilla heading to Morocco to
Because
protect
they
the
have
dog?
cats.
That's what I'm saying. It's such baloney. All these people protest for criminals, but when something like this happens, nobody says a word. They just keep their mouth shut. They don't say anything. Maybe because they all have cats. I don't know.
They have cats.
They're communists. They think as a community, not as individuals.
Yeah. All right. In other joyous,
Where are the protests? Where is the outrage from the left? There is none.
it doesn't exist. It's selective. It only protects people that are trying to run over ICE agents doing their jobs and deporting criminal illegal aliens. In other happy news this week, today, Jesse Jackson, race-baiting, self-serving poverty pimp Jesse Jackson, assumed room temperature at the age of 84. And I'm really sorry he had such a long run, but he's gone now, and we're all happy. At least I'm not going to speak for the panel, but at least I'm very happy about that. This guy was a piece of shit who smeared Martin Luther King's blood all over his own shirt so he could take his place. And in fact, there are some rumors that indicate that Jesse Jackson, in fact, was an FBI informant and is the one who led King onto the balcony, let him out there so it would be an easier shot for James Earl Ray to kill Dr. King, although that is, quote, unsubstantiated at this point. This guy spent his entire life trying to extort money out of white guilt. White guilt is something, Jesse, I am all out of, and I've been out of it since I was about 14 years old. Anybody else? Blake, you got any comments? I'm sure they'll be nicer than mine on the death of Jesse Jackson.
Well, I guess I'm a little embarrassed to say that back in 1984, I wanted to vote for Jesse Jackson. He was my choice, but I was also only 7, so I wasn't eligible to actually vote. But no, I thought he was a nice guy back in the day. Not nearly as shameless grifter as
he can't be on the show.
Elmer, but he certainly had his low moments. So, but he's been out of the spotlight for a while, and thankfully so is Sharpton, who was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree. Brooks, any thoughts?
I met him once in Nashville. He's quite tall, actually. Took me by surprise. But he was, his entire life, a racist thug. And he was an extortionist, as you say. He tried to extort money out of Nike. He basically said, if you don't start promoting black people inside your company, black people are going to stop buying your shoes. And he had the following to be able to do it. So Nike gave him money.
Okay. Steve Doran, any thoughts on the death of Jesse Jackson?
Good riddance. I mean, he and Al Sharpton are master and man. And let me tell you a story about them. The two of them flew to the Sudan, where black people are still sold on the streets of Khartoum to this day. Like every Thursday, they have a slave auction. They witness the slave auctions. They talk about the racism in America, how white people are racist against black people. But when they saw this and they said, this really isn't right. So the Muslims, yet again, paid them off to keep their mouth shut and not say anything and make it an international issue. So they shut up, took the money, and never mentioned it again.
Exactly.
So,
okay.
But yeah, we're racist. We're racist. Yeah. But, people who sell, Muslims who sell black people on the street are not.
Any thoughts about ultimately what his political impact was on the planet? Was it anything, or does he end up just being? I mean, didn't he become Blake? It feels like he became sort of a caricature of himself at the end. It just became obvious that he was just in it for the grift and really had no political ideology other than making white people feel guilty and trying to get money out of corporations. So doesn't he end up kind of that's being his legacy? His legacy isn't going to be anything significant, is it? Or is it?
It seemed like you could have framed him as like maybe a humanitarian a long time ago, but maybe after Obama, and if we scrutinize, things differently, look at it in a different way, perhaps there's another picture to be, painted there. So, but yeah, I would say towards the end, he was definitely more into the race grifter hustler camp. And it was just part of the Obama and Al Sharpton, all that whole group there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of interesting people, my girlfriend AOC went to Munich, where she followed up Marco Rubio's very impressive speech, which I think we're going to show a little bit of today. And she made a couple of really interesting comments. Let's see if we can find them. The first one, let's just let AOC do her thing. All right, go girl. I love them titties. Go girl. Hang on. Yeah, there we go. Let's go, girl.
We look at what happened in Venezuela, for example. It is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator. And by the way, we look.
Of course, as you can see from this graph, Venezuela is 100% above the equator. Let's just watch it from a different perspective. Let's just watch it again, just because,
we look at what happened in Venezuela, for example. It is not a.
There's the equator right there.
It is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator.
It's
and
incredible dingbat. It's not below the equator, and then she followed that up later on with some remarks on the invasion of Taiwan should it occur. This is really good stuff. Listen to this.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that.
Yes.
This is a.
Yes.
This is, of course, a very longstanding.
Yes.
Policy of the United States.
Go on.
I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any.
Wow.
And for that question to even arise.
Wow.
And she's going to be the next president of the United States.
What?
Wow.
What?
Graduate of the Kamala University.
That was Kamala Harris word salad 101. That was a word salad recipe. Steve, they were trying to get AOC's great as long as she doesn't talk. Just show me your boobs. Wow. They put her on this stage to try to promote her as the presidential candidate, I guess. Steve, come on.
Yep. That's the next president of the United States of America.
Yes, there she is. AOC and her gigantic milk bags. Blake, what are your thoughts on AOC's foreign policy expertise, which was fully on display there?
Yeah, she was in a lot of trouble right there, and she doesn't know how to answer it. And she's trying to find out like where's the Democratic Party stand, because she doesn't want to go too independently, and she's going to get roasted for that, or you're going to get roasted by not answering that. But ultimately, she's not. She's over her head as far as being a presidential candidate, and to have these serious discussions on these complex global issues. So she's just, especially with serious people outside of her bubble that she's used to. So it's not going to fly.
Who did she sleep with?
Well, I thought they always gave her the questions in advance, so she had an answer.
She probably did have the answers in advance, the question in advance.
Who did she sleep with to get where she is now? Oh, I don't know, but it wasn't me. But anytime, baby, anytime. Just let's keep our mouth shut there. Let's give it something to do. Brooks, we got another issue coming up here in a minute, but
I absolutely think that we should consider.
Are the Democrats fucking doomed or what?
They have no bench. When the best answer they can come up with is, well, I think we should consider
that this is a standing.
Yeah, we should definitely make that decision and consider it. That's their bench. That's their bench. That's their best hitter that they have.
Okay, so
she does look good on camera from the waist up. That ass, ooh, baby, it's beginning to blow up.
It's getting big. She's getting the Latina. Yeah, the early 30s.
So she can say Venezuela very good. And Maduro, she can say that really well.
It is hot the way she says Venezuela.
I know that accent.
Definitely turns me on. If they made an AOC AI robot, I'd go for that. All right. So look, here's the thing. I'm not looking at the stupid midterms. I don't care. We're going to talk about them in a little bit more. But does the Democrats, are they giving anybody any reason to vote for them? No.
I mean, they are bringing home the bacon. Illegal Omar brings the bacon home to her Somali followers, about $18 billion worth of it. So they are going to keep getting reelected. But you're right. The midterms are in big trouble. They're in big trouble.
Well, they're in trouble because
talent like that.
They're in trouble. Like even in states like Washington, they stole, I think, like a $3 billion from the police and fire department retirement fund because they didn't have any money, and because of USAID being cut off, they had to get the money somewhere, so they stole it from the pension.
Well, look at the fire prevention funds in LA, the Karen and Adolph Newsom. Yep. My God. I mean, all this needs to have is airplay, and people will get it. They'll get it.
But the news won't cover it. I mean, they, like on local news covers it, but hang on one second. I'll tell you the exact amount.
Well, you're right. I mean, Apple TV.
$4 billion. They took $4 billion out of the fund.
46% of the people
can't steal from USAID anymore because it was closed down.
46% of the people get their news from Apple TV News. Zero conservative stories on Apple TV News. Yep. They don't hear what we're saying. They don't watch us.
And yet it doesn't move the polls because the Democrats are still polling at 20%. The Zeke asks, what does AOC have below the equator? That booty. She's got that booty below the equator. So, yeah. It's good stuff. Okay. What was I going to go over? All right. So this leads into some other political back and forth stuff that's kind of interesting this week, which is that the so-called SAVE Act, which is the Voting Act, the Voting Rights Act, which will require you to prove you're a citizen before you vote, which is the end of the Democrat Party if it passes, now has, believe it or not, 50 votes in the U.S. Senate. There's only one more hurdle to clear. Let me bring this up. And let's listen to Scott from Pressler from Persistence.
Basically saying pass the Save America Act or bust. Otherwise, the Republican voters are not going to come out this November. Where it's basically saying, pass the Save America Act or bust. Otherwise, the Republican voters are not going to come out this November. Where it's basically.
Okay, so that is what Pressler is saying. He is, if you don't know, a gay political activist in Pennsylvania who helped deliver Pennsylvania to President Trump in 2024. The SAVE Act is really important because it'll have paper ballots, probably a blockchain technology as well. No more Dominion, no more hammer, no more scorecard. It's the end of the Democratic Party as we know it. Blake, right now, the thing that stands in the way is the filibuster needs to be busted, and John Thune needs to do that. What do you think the chances are? Because they've now got the 50 votes, so JD Vance can break the tie. What do you think the chances are we get the SAVE Act before the end of the week?
Oh, by the end of the week, I'll be optimistic and say we get it. That would be huge. Even though it's basically, we're making it's just common sense. It should be the way it is anyway. We shouldn't be even having this discussion. It shouldn't be up for debate. It's sad that it has to be like this. But if it's 50-50 and they can, would use the tiebreaker with Vance, then that should pass. I don't know. So who's going to run is it going to be Schumer or who's going to run this filibuster if they decide to do that? And what are they even going to talk about? Or is it going to be more of that like Cory Booker thing where he just talks about absolutely nothing and then the media says how stunning
they will do that as long as they can stand it, but sooner or later they will die because they all, as I understand it, Brooks, I may have this wrong, they all have to be on the Senate floor during the filibuster. Is that not correct?
That is not correct. The current method of filibuster that the Senate uses is called a zombie filibuster. And they just don't stand up and talk, but they force it to get the 60 votes to beat or to accomplish cloture. What John Thune is being pressured to do, and by the way, that 50th vote, Susan Collins, that came into it, there were some trade-offs that had to be done with that Save America Act. But the stand-up filibuster is what you're talking about, and that's what John Thune's being encouraged to have happen. That means one guy needs to stand up and talk until he drops. And when that filibuster is over, they vote. If it's 50-50, Vance steps in and breaks the tie. But so far, Thune has not agreed to that. We're still in the zombie filibuster yardage right now.
Steve, do we need to send aliens to abduct John Thune and do some horrible things in terms of probing him to get him to motivate this? Or, it's beginning to look like it's going to happen. We're going to talk about whether there's some shifting ground on this stuff soon anyway. Steve, what are your thoughts on this? I think it's closer than we think.
Well, I think it's closer than we think, but I don't know if it's going to be this week. Maybe next.
Okay. Blake, any particular thoughts about whether the SAVE Act will pass or not?
We already said, yeah. I'll just say optimistically, yeah, they'll pass it this week. We'll just be contrarian. I sure hope so. Otherwise, the Republic is doomed. But whether it's this week, next week, it's got to be done. A little cushion, hopefully, before the election.
Okay.
The Trump version of this is no mail-in ballots, period. But that's the trade-off. Susan Collins agreed to vote for it, but I promise you they're going to be mail-in ballots and there's going to be cheating.
I didn't know that one. Okay.
We shall see. Well, actually, what will happen is then they'll have to do a reconciliation bill. And the House bill has no mail-in ballots, so it could through that way. So we shall see. We shall see on that, but it is the most critical issue facing the country right now. By the way, I was going to do a little bit of Marco Rubio, but I think we'll worry about that in a minute. Other things have happened, and the Epstein files took off a little bit this week. We had Representative Lauren Boebert saying some quite amazing things, and she's also hot, by the way. Representative Lauren Boebert said a few interesting things. Let me read them to you, since we can't really see it as well. She says the Epstein files are way darker than anyone imagined. Torture emails, constant references to consumption, which is cannibalism, a place literally called the Cannibal Restaurant, and code words like turkey and human meat being thrown around like it's nothing. She straight up asked if we're looking at cannibalism. This isn't some fringe theory anymore. A sitting congresswoman is saying the quiet part out loud. These monsters weren't just raping and trafficking kids. They may have been doing more than that, eating them. And the women, Ghislaine Maxwell, Rachel Chandler, and a whole network of female predators were neck deep in moving children into this nightmare machine. She said no more national security excuses, that sort of thing. And there is one other... Thomas Massey, who's trying to make a name for himself, went to the Senate floor and talked about the Epstein files. Let's listen to that.
That is wrong. Do not let the Senate muck this bill up. And if you're a part of that in the Senate, you are part of this cover-up that we are trying to expose. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island. That is what they have coming. In fact, they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men, in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up. Okay,
so Massey is accusing people of covering up the Epstein files and what's in them. However, 3.5 million of them have been released. What we do know about them so far is that, in spite of what Boebert says, they don't show any of that pretty much in the files that have been released so far. We are going to talk about certain members of the Trump administration that are mentioned prominently in them, but I don't want to quite go there yet. But here's the scenario I'd like to put out to the panel. And Brooks, I'd like to start with you. It seems to me that it's interesting timing that these votes switched on the SAVE Act about the time these started coming out, these files started coming out. And also at the same time that people were given access to the ones that haven't been released yet. And suddenly there's enough votes for the SAVE America Act to be passed in the Senate. I think Trump knows what's in them. I think he's not prominently in them in any way that would incriminate him at all. I think Thomas Massey is a fucking grandstander who is desperately trying to make himself relevant for a political or for a news career after this is all over. He didn't say virtually anything about the Epstein files while Biden was president. Today he posted, I talked about it, I talked about it during Biden, and he showed 3 or 4 tweets over 4 years that he put out about Epstein. So it's virtually nothing. So that's bullshit. Massey is just an obstructionist. He's just being paid by somebody, probably Soros, to try to obstruct Trump. That's all this is about for him. He's a well-known Trump hater. I don't take him seriously at all. And I think what's going on is that Trump is now showing people in Congress what's in there about them and what's going to be put out if they don't vote. Now, they can hem and haw all they want, but in the end, they're going to vote for it. Is my thought strategy crazy, or is that really maybe?
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. First of all, Trump is brilliant. He's played 5D chess through this whole thing, calling it a distraction and we should move on. And why are we still talking about the Epstein files? And the Democrats pushed as hard as they could because they hate Trump so badly. And what happened was they made the files searchable by the Congress and the Senate. They provided them computers. They provided them passwords and usernames to be able to go in and search them as they will. What they did not know, getting these computers and usernames and passwords, is that every keystroke, every search term was being recorded. And when Pam Bondi went before the House Judiciary Committee, she mentioned that they were recording the search terms. The color drained completely out of the faces of many of the Democrats because they were not only searching for their own names in there, They were searching for the names of their donors. And that's why this is cracking the way it is. Trump played it brilliantly, and they walked straight into the trap.
Blake, what do you think about that idea? I mean, I do know they check the search terms, and frankly, if you're a congressman or a senator and you go in there and the first thing you search is your own name in the Epstein files, guess what that means? That means you're in the Epstein files. That's what they do. So all they have to do is release a list of everybody who searched for themselves in there. Granted, Russell Wilson ended up in the Epstein files because supposedly somebody tried to sell him Epstein's plane when he was looking for a plane about 10 years ago. But what do you think about all that stuff? And do you think that that's possibly why we're suddenly getting some movement on some of this legislation?
Well, I hope Brooks is right in that this is a 5D chess move, because it looked pretty bad last July when they were acting like there was, they were saying nothing's in it. And then he's saying, oh, why are people still talking about that? It was a bad look. And a lot of people were upset. And they ran Marjorie Taylor Greene out of town. They've been hitting him pretty hard. He's actually been one of the people trying to, bring this stuff into the public. And of course, he's getting fun. I don't know if he's taking Soros money or not, but he's certainly, his billionaire people, powerful people are certainly trying to get him out of there again. And a lot of this stuff is from, 10 years ago. And maybe there was an argument to be made that the public wasn't quite ready to handle these shocking contents. But after all these years, I think that it's time. We can't continue to allow these very powerful predators to be in charge of running the country. I also am a bit nervous about Howard Lutnick, who looks pretty guilty there, and he's right next to Trump. So I don't know who's running who. Some people are saying he's his handler. Maybe Trump is doing the keep my enemies closer. I don't know the strategy, but that's going to be an awkward situation.
Okay, now, Steve, one thing that's really interesting here to me is that in the files that have been released so far, all this terrible stuff we heard Lauren Boebert talk about, none of that is in the files that we've seen so far. All of these so-called victims are adult females, 99% of whom are prostitutes who engaged willingly and with compensation in prostitution. Is it really worth all of this crap if a bunch of adult prostitutes simply provided services that they provide for rich and powerful men? Is that really the scandal that's being made out to be in 2025?
Well, we know that many children were abused, killed, tortured, raped. I mean, there's photographs, there's video evidence. It's more than just a few prostitutes, being sent to the elite hotel rooms. What?
There are no such photographs that we have seen. There is only
we haven't seen it. We have not. We have not seen them.
About people saying that this stuff exists. There are stories, right?
Well, we have elected officials saying that they've actually seen it.
And we have some of the videos that are beginning to leak out. Some of the videos are beginning to leak out.
We also know that was what was said in the emails and what was asked for in the emails and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't asking for a professional prostitute. They were asking for a child. They were talking about torturing children.
Yep.
So they weren't asking for professional prostitutes.
And some of the videos have.
And how do you get a baby to suck harder? Get a recording of the mother's voice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all of those things. And then we have known pedophiles like Woody Allen and all of these other people who have been involved in these types of things for years and years and years, who, were Epstein's best friends, constantly emailing back and forth. And the emails tell the tale, even though we haven't seen the actual photographs or videos, but there are elected officials who say they have seen it.
Okay, so let's get out on this particular question. What do you think that this Epstein issue continues to haunt President Trump into the midterms, or do you think that it's only February, as more gets exposed, the more obvious it will be who's really guilty of something heinous and who isn't. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, you have Bondi saying that, oh, if I prosecute everybody that was involved in it, the whole system will collapse. Let it collapse.
I don't think she said that.
What's that?
I don't think she said that. That's what the press has been trying to let on, but Pam Bondi never said that. However, I feel like if they really did what they allegedly had done, then the whole system does need to be burned down.
Absolutely.
I think Tim Burchett
at the hearings, at the judicial hearings, they ask the victims if the FBI or the Justice Department had interviewed them, and they said no. They had them all stand up. They said
those were handpicked.
Your attorney, and Bondi was like sweating freaking bullets when they were going through all that.
Those were handpicked, and those victims have been well known all the way through the Biden administration, and Merrick Garland never talked to them either.
Well, and many of those victims, again, are not victims. They're adult prostitutes who engage voluntarily in activities on Epstein Island, and there's a bunch of them that said, I never saw any little kids there. I never saw any cannibalism. I never saw any murder. All I ever saw was a bunch of adult women giving hand jobs to old men that had money. That's Robert Kraft. I mean, that's the truth. So here's the question. Is this such a mess that we're never going to really know what happened? And or is it so overblown that it ends up fizzling out and looking like a hoax? I mean, Trump used that word. It's a hoax. Will it turn out to be a hoax that these terrible things, the worst things, the satanic ritual stuff, will it turn out to be a hoax that stuff actually happened on the island or not? I mean,
I think you're going to see a lot of resignations, a lot of suicides, and a lot of retirements.
Steve?
I agree. I believe that I don't believe it's a hoax. Like I said, we can see the emails. We can see what they're talking about. We can see what they're asking for. The comments that are being made, the questions that are being asked, and it all points to pedophilia,
something
rape,
serious.
murder.
Yeah. Blake, what do you think? In the end, does the Epstein files just sort of burn itself out, or does it keep growing and metastasizing on the body politic in the USA between now and the fall?
I think it's going to continue to grow. And I think on Steve's point, I don't think it was from Pam Bondi. I think it was Tim Burchett that said something like that. The Epstein material that's unreleased and so evil, it will haunt you for life. I think there's going to be a lot of curiosity. And I've been watching Fox News and the way that they've just been covering Nancy Guthrie 24/7. Just like they don't talk about Epstein shows how scared they are to go any further with this. So I think they're actively covering it up because they don't want the public.
And by the way, on this Nancy Guthrie thing, Steve, you're a detective, you're a cop. I wish we had Jim Mitchell on here. I'm just going to tell you, it appears to me that she had her mom offed, or either that, or she hired two guys to burgle her house, steal her jewelry so she could collect the insurance money, because maybe she's overspent herself and she's broke. Steve, what do you think about that case?
Well, either that. I mean, one of the things I was thinking about is that the mom died and they're using it as yet another distraction. That they just took the body out and pretended like, told the public that she was kidnapped. But if you really look at that video of the one individual that they got on the Ring camera, that wasn't a guy, that was a woman.
It looks like Nancy Guthrie.
It was definitely a woman. I mean, look at the way the gun was worn. No guy's going to wear their pistol that way because it's going to smack them in the junk.
Yeah.
You look at the pants. You look at the size of the legs. Yeah. You look at the way the backpack was being worn and the way the person was walking. It was a woman.
I got to get Jim Mitchell and Jigba on here, and we'll talk about this. We'll go over the case. So that's awesome.
But it's just another distraction. I mean, it's every time that something big comes up in the news media, something else rears its ugly head to distract everybody from what's really going on. It happens every single time. And if you believe anything the news media says, you're a moron.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of distractions, Polymarkets now say there is a 74% chance that the Supreme Court will rule against Donald Trump's tariff power. in some at some point in the future. We don't know when, because they've been talking about ruling on this now for a better part of 2 months, and they've never ruled on it. That will be catastrophic to U.S. foreign policy and the U.S. economy if they do that. Brooks, what do you think about those odds? I think it's better than 50-50 that Trump wins this, and I think it's very clearly within the president's power to impose tariffs. I mean, to me, Brooks, tariffs are they're an instrument of foreign policy. Therefore, they fall under the president's powers under Article 2. Also, what's very clear to me is people say, well, Congress has got the right to regulate. Well, regulate does not mean dictate. Regulate doesn't mean that you set the laws. What regulate means is that the president sets the policy and the Congress is responsible to make sure it's implemented by regulation. Furthermore, if this isn't the president's power, why is it the Commerce Department that's in charge of collecting all this stuff?
Exactly
which is
right.
what an executive branch department. So what do you think the ruling's going to be? Because this is the ticking time bomb on the U.S. economy right now. If the Supreme Court does this, I think the markets get nuked the next day. What do you think about
Yeah,
this?
I think so too. If you go back to history, and this is what the Supreme Court relies on a lot, when the Constitution gets vague about things like this, they go back to look what the early nation was doing. And from the early 19th century, 1810, 1815, right in there, after the War of 1812, the president used tariffs to raise revenue for the nation, because we were broke after that war. We sold most of our Navy after that war. The president has always had the power to tariff and always had the power to manipulate foreign policy by using those tariffs to protect the United States against confiscatory taxation by other nations. It has to be in the president's hands. And you're right. The Commerce Department implements it, and that is a part of the executive branch.
Therefore, it's the president's power.
Absolutely.
Blake, I know you're not a big tariffs guy necessarily, but what do you think happens if the Supreme Court makes this idiotic ruling? And by the way, everybody who acts like the Supreme Court is infallible, do not forget, the Supreme Court once ruled that Dred Scott was not a human being because he was black. So the Supreme Court is hardly, or colored more appropriately, as they called him at that time, hardly a arbiter of morality and common sense. Blake, what do you think will happen if, in fact, this ruling goes down, and why have we not seen it so far?
Well, that's a historic decision they've got to make, and I certainly really have nothing to say. I'm going to completely abstain from this because I have no particular input. It is not my expertise by any means.
I think it's something we should all get serious about learning about, because if this happens, not only do we lose billions and billions of dollars that we may have to pay back, which will bankrupt the country. Here's the thing, Steve. To me, I think Trump has got the Supreme Court's balls in a vice at this point. They would probably dearly love to rule against him because they would like to seize this power for themselves or sell it off to the highest bidder like Congress. But here's the reality. If they do this, it probably collapses the U.S. economy very, very quickly and gives the president every reason to invoke the Insurrection Act and take over everything, including the Supreme Court. What do you think about that now, Steve?
Well, I agree with Brooks 100%. I mean, it's nothing new. Presidents throughout history have used tariffs to protect the United States, to raise money. It's not like, Trump is the first guy to use it, the first guy to invoke tariffs against other countries. And so if they rule against him, it's a setup. I mean, you absolutely know that it's a setup. And they're trying to collapse the economy. That's what they want.
Yeah, I don't. You're frozen up a little bit there. And the thing is, is it possible, Brooks, that they think that they're just waiting on this to do it right before the election to try to hurt Trump by collapsing the economy? What do you think?
It's possible. I mean, the Supreme Court has a long history of playing politics like that. But this is bigger than that. You know, when we're talking about protecting the United States, you do not see a Ford Mustang in Tokyo, Japan. Doesn't exist. You will never see an American-made car in London or in any country in Europe, because they put a 20% to 50% tariff on our vehicles going out of our country to their country.
Yeah.
So it's only fair that we tariff their vehicles coming into this country unless they come here, build a factory and hire Americans and build that car here in the US. That is purely the president's power. I mean, if you give this power to Congress, you might as well give Congress the power over interest rates.
Yep.
I mean, why is it unfair? Why is it unfair? I mean, I'm agreeing with Brooks. Why is it unfair for us to initiate tariffs against countries who, for the last 100 years, have been hitting us with them? I mean,
absolutely.
It's like if they want to drop their tariffs 100% and start importing our goods with no tariffs, then I say, okay, take them away. But
look at our farm output.
And we're going to put tariffs on yours. I mean, that's just fair. Turnabout is fair play.
Trump has called them reciprocal tariffs. So yeah.
You look at our farmers who have been trying to sell product into Canada for 50 years. Canada puts an enormous tariff on American produce, wheat, cattle, beef, everything. And so that's how Canada remains competitive. So, and we give Canada like $200 million a year just to shore up their economy because it's so failing.
Yep.
So the president took control of that and said, you tariff us, we're going to tariff you. Now you could say they're our ally, but they're not our ally.
No, they're not. They're bringing Chinese. I have friends in Canada that say they are bringing in Chinese-aged military guys into this country at an alarming rate and putting them on the border. There, he thinks they're getting ready to invade.
They used to ship us Chinese aluminum and call it made in Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
Chinese steel. They used to drop ship it through Canada and call it made in Canada.
Chinese aluminum sucks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our quality went up 20% when we started using American aluminum.
So let's go around the horn. If we had to take a guess today, and it may not be ruled on until the fall when they think they're going to hurt Trump with it, instead they're going to give him an excuse to take over everything. What do you think, Blake? Do you think that the tariffs stand, or does the Supreme Court rule against Trump?
I'll just say they stand. I haven't really seen the debt. I love the idea of the reciprocal tariffs, and we're way out of balance. We got way too much debt. I like the idea. I just haven't seen like enough data where I'm going, oh yeah, this is definitely working. It probably is. I just honestly haven't been paying that much attention to it. But I appreciate his bold strategy, and I want to see if it actually works. So I would be disappointed if the Supreme Court all of a sudden just said, well, technically we can't do this because of blah, blah, blah in 1795 or something. So let's let it run the course. See what happens.
That's the thing, Blake, is this is the kind of thing we elected Trump to do.
Yeah. We're 14 months into it, and the United States has banked $130 billion in tariffs.
Yeah, and counting. Why is this up to the Supreme Court? Another good question. Some people think that the Supreme Court is the ultimate arbiter of what is the law. No, the law is not what the Supreme Court says it is.
That's correct.
The law is what the president, the Supreme Court, and the Congress all agree that it is. That's what the law is. Steve, what are your thoughts? Do you think that the Supreme Court rules in favor of Trump on the tariffs or against him?
I'm gonna try to be as positive as possible, and I think they're gonna go with Trump only because, like I said, historically the president has always had that power. There's never been a time that a president doesn't have that power. In fact, we pretty much ran our country on tariffs for a long, long time, instead of on the backs of the American people. And so, in my opinion, although they do foolish things all the time, that they would be, it would be beyond reason. It would be beyond reason.
All right, dogs are welcome on this program.
Apparently,
by the way, it's getting ready to be springtime. The bears are out and about, and the dogs are running the bears off. That's why they're.
I got news for you, buddy. It's the skunk ape. It's not the bear.
It's the bears.
Brooks, what do you think? Does the Supreme Court rule in favor of Trump on the tariffs and keep the economy going, or do they rule against him and try to collapse the whole system?
They rule for him. And there's a couple other items like birthright citizenship and others are also going to rule with Trump because of what this nation has always done, considered the historical record, the historical conversations in the Federalist Papers and others. They've always considered these things in actually determining whether a law is constitutional or not.
Yeah.
This is not a law. You're exactly right. This is not a law. This is precedent that's set up in the Constitution, and they have no business messing with it.
And by the way, Brooks, he mentioned, the being born in the United States, being a United States citizen. That has changed back and forth over the years. There have been times in the United States where if you were a foreign national and you had a child born in the United States, they were not a United States citizen.
That's correct.
So
That's
it's been
correct.
back and forth.
American Indians had to sue to get that right, and children of female U.S. citizens had to have a law passed to secure that right. The birthright used to go with the nationality of the father. So if an American woman married a British man,
depending on the year you were born, immigrations would make their decision based on the year you were born and what the law was at that time.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. We're going to flip back over a little bit to the Epstein files, not the Y files. By the way, go check out my interview with AJ Gentili of the Y files. 1.1 million views so far. Get on over there. It was great. It was 3.5 hour conversation. That I was so awesome, that conversation, that I had hot girls calling me up that haven't called me in like 3 months. Bara, that was really amazing. Wow. I'm like, yeah, I know. Come on, let's.
Don't you wish you got like a nickel of you?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But AJ gets that. All right. Speaking of the Epstein files, one of the big surprises, I guess, in the Epstein files is who is actually in it. It turns out one of Jeffrey Epstein's best friends was not Donald Trump, but one of his best friends in the last 10 years is none other than Steve Bannon, who claims to be a Trump ally, claims to be on Trump's side, but maybe Steve Bannon was always full of shit. Here he is with CIA, Jack Posobiec, and some other twats on his show a couple of years ago, talking about Elon Musk needing to be deported because he was a traitor.
SpaceX. President Trump tonight should sign an executive order calling for the Defense Production Act to be called in SpaceX and seize SpaceX tonight before midnight. The U.S. government should seize it. If a guy's going to sit there and start making quotes, also, as Stuart Stevens talked back in January, I don't know why we haven't had a full investigation. Look, if you're going to deport illegal aliens, you got to deport illegal aliens. The good go with the good, the goose and the gander. They got to go back to this, as Stuart Stevens talked about, and go through everything about his immigration status. I happen to believe, given the facts that I've been shown, that he's an illegal alien, and illegal aliens got to be deported. Also, this drug use is reported in the New York Times. The drug use in the New York Times, if that's a fact, that ought to be investigated. You can't have a security clearance, Jack Posobiec, as you know. Jack, if somebody in your unit had that type of drug, drugs, and they had a security clearance, what would happen to them, sir?
Well, Steve, remember that Hunter Biden popped positive, I believe, for cocaine on his very first weekend in the Navy Reserve. And even at that time, I don't remember if his father, I think his father was still the vice president at the time. He wasn't president yet, or autopilot president yet. And Hunter Biden was summarily separated from the United States Navy over his very first weekend as drilling as a Navy reservist over popping positive.
Also, it should take his security clearance away, and all contracts should be suspended pending that investigation. Also, as I said on the Tim Pool show in Matt Gaetz's office, I think over a year ago, right? That was over a year ago, where I said, hey, he's an agent of influence of the Chinese Communist Party because of his financial relationship in Tesla. That should be fully investigated.
Okay, so that's what Steve Bannon said about Elon Musk. Well, guess what, guys? Elon Musk responded to that And here's what he said. Bannon's list of crimes is very long. Well, you remember back in 2017, 2018, 2019, how there were all these leaks out of the White House. Well, now we know from the Epstein emails that the guy who was leaking the entire time was Steve fucking Bannon. Steve Bannon is a traitor to Donald Trump. What shocked you this week about the Steve Bannon revelations? Anything? Or what do you think ought to happen to Bannon at this point?
Yeah, that's going to be it's a very interesting story. I think he finally responded, but he didn't really say much. So this is causing another divide and a lot of infighting amongst the influencers. So everyone's credibility is taking a big hit on this one. I was stuck on Bannon. He got fired, and then he kind of buddied up to Epstein so we could get dirt on Trump. Maybe that was part of it, but clearly, if he's leaking and doing all this, he's a shady opportunist. And what he did to Elon was way over the line, calling for deportation, taking his security clearance away. I mean, that's just really deeply personal. So
that's the thing. You made a very good point there that I really kind of agree with. Trump fired Bannon really fast. Brooks, do you think he found out that Bannon was the leaker all along?
He probably did. I will tell you, I don't like Steve Bannon. I went to Trump Tower right after he was elected, right in December of 2016, to speak with them about the future of energy. And they had not made a decision on who they were going to put as Secretary of Energy. I got as far as, guess who? Steve Bannon's secretary in Trump Tower. That's as far as I got. And she was not entertaining any talk like that. They had already made the decision on Rick Perry. And I said, so you're going to put an oil guy in charge of energy. What does he know about nuclear energy? Nothing. I have a degree in nuclear chemistry. Let's talk serious. They weren't going anywhere. Steve Bannon had way too much influence over the first Trump presidency, and it was full of leaks and full of weakness.
Yeah. These emails show, Steve, that Steve Bannon was very buddy-buddy with Epstein. And I think Blake is correct. It looks like what happened was he got fired. He got pissed off. And while pretending to be a Trump loyalist the entire time, he was actually working behind his back. It's right in there to get Trump impeached or removed under the 25th Amendment. What is that? I mean, I tuned Steve Bannon out in about 2022, 2021. What about you? I don't know. I just stopped listening.
Well, Steve Bannon is clearly a criminal. I mean, he's got a list of issues that he's had, since he's been involved in the corporate world, let alone politics. And he's nobody that can be trusted. And he's a typical backstabber. You don't do it my way. You don't do what I say, I'm going to ruin you. And I mean, that's pretty much.
Bannon rose to power when Breitbart was Breitbarted.
Yeah. That's true. So, all right. Okay. Couple of other issues I would like to go over. Some other things happened this week on election fraud. And once again, we're going to go back to Glenn Beck. He's talking about Georgia. And Georgia was a very interesting situation. Let's let Glenn Beck summarize the information.
Thing that they are doing that is right is the Fulton County, Georgia situation with the election of 2020. The morning after the election, let's just to remind you, Georgia's Secretary of State went on national television and said 4.7 million votes had been cast. He said only about 2% remained to be counted, which is roughly 94,000 ballots. And he said at this moment, the margin is decisive. Even suggested if one candidate won 100% of all of the outstanding votes, it's not going to change the outcome. But when the final tally first came in, the total wasn't 4.7 million votes that had been cast. It was 5.023 million. Okay, wait, what? And in Fulton County alone, the absentee ballots reportedly rose from 74,000 to more than 148,000 between election night and final certification. Where did that come from? And that's why this shift happened. It reversed the apparent outcome of the state, and that's why Donald Trump was like, wait a minute, cheating is going on. The report now states, no known explanation has been provided to justify the surge. Pause. If the numbers change by that magnitude, after officials publicly declare with near final certainty, then again, we've got to get it right. Not almost right. We need it right. We don't need defensiveness, dismissal. We need clarity. The report then goes into the chain of custody. Okay, listen to this. Investigators found that 148,000 absentee ballots were accepted and counted without first performing mandatory signature verification. Tens of thousands allegedly arrived at State Farm Arena in unsecured mail carts. Wait, what? Do you know what chain of custody is? Chain of custody is really important. It's not a partisan phrase.
Yeah, okay, so that's Glenn basically saying they have the Democrats dead to rights on voter fraud in Georgia. Steve, is anything going to happen about this? Or if it isn't, why do they keep bringing it up and talking about it and having more hearings and making more cases?
Well, they keep talking about it because they quote unquote want to eliminate it, and they want this act to pass so that it doesn't happen again. But no, nobody's going to, I mean, maybe some low level people are going to go to jail, but if the Justice Department was serious, they would be issuing indictments as we speak, and they're not doing it. They know they cheated. They know they have the evidence to prosecute, and yet here we go again. No arrests, nobody going to jail, just a lot of talk.
Brooks.
Well, I hate to pull a Hillary Clinton, but I know what they're saying. They're saying, well, what difference does it make at this point anyway? Because the people are dead. The money's been stolen. You can't get it all back. You can't just undo everything Biden did. People died because of those policies.
Yeah, you can. You actually can. Everything legal that he did, don't you think? You can undo every single signature. You can remove Ketanji Brown Jackson from the Supreme Court.
I think in the first 90 days, maybe. But after all this time, no. All you can do is expose it and prevent it from happening again. And the way to do that is no mail-in ballots at all, unless you're handicapped or in the military. And it's only going to make about 0.5% difference in the vote anyway.
And then, like I told you, when we voted for Reagan back when I was overseas, all they did was throw them out. They didn't even send them in. They chucked them.
Because the margin between Reagan and his opponent was so large, all the mail-in ballots in the world would have made no difference. So they just didn't.
And that's what happened in 2020 is Trump was beating the cheat so badly that they had to literally stop everything in 7 states, which, by the way, that right there shows you fraud. Right there, they had to stop the counting in those 7 states so they could manufacture enough ballots to give Joe Biden the win. And no, I'm sorry, it does make a difference because this is treason. It is a crime, and everyone involved needs to go to the guillotine. Yeah. Blake, including the black ladies who pulled the ballots out from underneath the tables and ran them through 30 or 40 times. Let's start with them, actually.
Including the people that took armloads of ballots and stuffed them into the Zucker boxes.
Until you make the French Revolution great again, you'll continue to have Blake, any thoughts on this, and do you think it moves the needle at all?
I don't know if anyone's actually going to be held accountable. They should, several people should, and maybe they're trying to, get them to squeal and make deals. They got the pressure on them. Hopefully, I don't know if they're going to get them for 2020, but if they can, eliminate all of the ways that they've manipulated things, and we can actually have, clean elections with integrity going forward, I think I could be, happy with that. But yeah, there should be a few heads to roll. Maybe they can sacrifice a few of the lambs. We'll see.
Like whoever gave the order to stop counting the votes in the middle of the night on
there you go.
2020, which would be Barack Hussein Obama. Audrey says Polymarket has Democrats with an 83% chance to win the House this year. It was 63% not long ago. The odds of Democrats winning the Senate have also increased 24% to 41%. I'm going to tell you two things about that, Audrey. Number one, the Democrats are still polling at 18%, so there's a huge difference between being pissed off at Trump and voting for Democrats, number one. Number two, 9 months before the Super Bowl, and we're about 9 months away from the election, the Seattle Seahawks odds of winning the Super Bowl were 18% on Polymarket. Guess who won? Not
Bingo.
Seahawks. So it doesn't mean anything, and don't get worried about it and don't get upset about it. All right, there is one last thing I'd like to pop up here and talk about. My friend, colleague Nick Pope announced on, I think, last Thursday that he has stage 4 terminal cancer. He said a while ago, following some digestive issues, I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Unfortunately, it's stage 4 and it's metastasized to my liver. While I know that it's kindness and hope that leads people to suggest healers and supposed miracle cures, and to say things like fight it and you can beat it, I'm afraid my diagnosis and my situation leaves no doubt whatsoever. I can't beat it. What an amazing adventure I have, so on and so forth. His time with his wife, Elizabeth, and basically said that he is not going to make it. And I called him the day that this came out. And, Steve, I kept thinking about your words, which is if you give in and think you're going to die, you will. And you got to fight it. And I, in spite of what he posted, I tried to talk to him about Fenben and ivermectin, or Menben and ivermectin. And he wouldn't hear of it.
Yep.
And he sounded weak and he sounded resigned. And I will be surprised if he makes it through the end of the week. I just think it's a shame he's not going to try everything. And, look, Nick has been skeptical of a lot of things. He called the people who believed in Pizzagate crazies. Well, now, according to some congressmen, Pizzagate's very real. And, there were just certain places Nick wasn't able to go. And I love the guy and I want to try to save him. And I know that this protocol can probably help him, if not save him, and he won't try it. And Brooks, I know you tried to talk to Nick about it too.
I did. I have about 20,000 of my customers are battling cancer. And you would not believe the mail and the phone calls that I get from people that are cancer-free now because of ivermectin and fenbendazole. It humbles me to the dust because my mission has been to save lives. And when I tried to reach out to Nick, he would not hear of it. And that was almost a year ago. I could tell something was wrong. I tried to reach out to him, but he was in the middle of his, world tour with the other guys in the UFO disclosure, and he was high and didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. Steve, what can you do if a friend or a colleague or an acquaintance, and I consider Nick not my best friend or anything, but certainly a friend, and I've got many hilarious memories with him. What can you do when someone refuses to try something that probably can save their life? Let's assume that. I mean, is there anything you could do, or you just let them?
Nothing. I mean, once people resign themselves that they're going to die, I don't know how many people I personally have known who their doctor told them they had terminal cancer and they had, possibly 30 days to live, and 10 days later they die. A lot of survival just is based on your mental attitude, whether you're going to give up or not. Now, when you take conventional treatments, like chemo and that type of thing, you get so sick that you just want it to end.
Yeah.
You don't want it to go any further. So I don't know what kind of conventional treatment he's taken, but I do know that once you say it's over, it's over. I mean, that's just the way it is. I don't care what it is. I mean, it doesn't even have to be cancer. When people give up, I know a lot of policemen who retired and their whole, they didn't have any outside hobbies or anything but the police department. And literally within months of retirement, They just sit in the chair and decide that they're useless, and they go.
That's it.
They're done.
Yeah.
I sat down with Bruce Lipton. I sat down with Bruce Lipton. We had a long conversation. He wrote the great book, The Biology of Belief. And what inspired him to write the book is that there was a guy that had esophageal cancer, just like Nick, had a diagnosis. He was going to die in about 6 months. 6 months later, he died. His family wasn't surprised. His doctor wasn't surprised. His friends weren't surprised. But the issue was when they did the autopsy, he didn't have esophageal cancer. He had programmed himself to die, and he did.
Pretty much. I mean, that's what they do. It's, I mean, I can tell you story after story after story after story of people I personally know. I mean, not stories that were reiterated to me, but, people I personally know. And like I said, the doctor says you got so much time to live. They call all their family members together. I'm dying. I'm going to be dead within the next 2 or 3 months. Within the next 2 or 3 weeks, they're done.
Yeah.
So if he's given up, there's nothing you can do.
No, there isn't. And I realized that when I hung up. At least I know this. The last thing I said to him was, I'm not going to say I love you, but I do like you an awful lot.
Yeah.
And then he said no homo at the end, I hope.
I did.
The thing about Nick is he was such a sweet guy. He had such a warm heart.
Oh,
he had a wonderful life. Didn't wish ill on any human being.
And when they say that when you drink, right, that when you drink, it just makes you more of what you already are. And Nick got sweeter and sweeter the more he drank. And
the other side of that coin is I also know people personally who go to the doctor and the doctor say, you've got lung cancer, you've got this, you've got that, you're going to die. And they do absolutely nothing. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to go out and have a good time until my time is up. And they live another 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. And don't do a dang thing. They just go, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm going to go have a good time. I know a particular guy, I won't mention his name. He did die eventually of old age, but the guy smoked like 3 packs of cigarettes a day. They told him he had lung cancer. He loved to go bowling and drink beer. And he said, well, for whatever time I have left, I'm going to go bowling and drink beer. And he sold all of his assets, got himself a nice little trailer. And for the next 20 years, went bowling, drank beer, and smoked cigarettes every day. Died of old age.
Amazing. Well, Nick, it's all
about mental attitude as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. Nick, and I don't know how much time you have left, but Godspeed in your next journey. And I'm sorry you're not going to be with us to see the future, because it's going to be pretty amazing. You can get Brooks medicines at brooksagnew.blog/therapeutics.
My guys.
Virgil, Muslims did fly planes into buildings. They did. I can assure you of that. All right. That's going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks for being here. I'll be back with Jen tomorrow on Tell the Truth Wednesday, and also Whiskey and Wisdom tomorrow night. God go with you, Nick, and everybody have a great week, and I will see you back here next week. As always, God willing. Thank you guys very much for being here. We'll see you. We'll see you very soon. And I don't know. It's sad. Days like this are sad. But Nick isn't gone yet. But wish him well on his next journey. Good night.
So it's rolling.